Hello and welcome to my build of the Feynman's Type 3 Chinokai, a 1945 Japanese tank stopgap prototype that was intended for home island defense. The build itself was extremely fast, as I almost finished it in one night without realizing, but stopped to film some of it and highlight some of the interesting points of the kit. The main upgrade over previous Japanese armor clearly is the high-velocity 75mm gun that could defeat elite armor with some adequacy on the potential hominless campaign. The kit includes the breech and also the regular short-barreled 75mm. The first modification was a very simple one, was cutting off the MG holder and drilling a hole. You can either choose to leave it on or take it out. I prefer it without it, but if you leave it on, it gives certain verticality to the model. Turret is extremely simple with a fine scale appropriate roll steel texture, which I really appreciate. I replaced the tool clamps with the ones from the specific photo edge, and out of boredom, I did the handles on the back with some paper clip. I added flame cut marks to give some weight and texture, with a sharp blade doing indents at random close intervals, then adding a bit of extra thin cement to soften it. Extremely simple and easy to do. This is the specific photo edge thread from Feynmans. It's very simple and includes clamps, turret hatch interior handles, and the muffle covers. The most interesting one is the jack one, which is articulated, very detailed, and very fun to build. Speaking of the jack, if we use the photo edge holder, we need to trim the one molded in. With a precision side cutter, we take out the bigger parts carefully. Then, with the blade flat against the surface, we trim the rest. Next, to make sure the surface is flat, grab a hard-backed file and sand it flat. To the lower hull. The suspension is not workable, but with some tinkering and replacing these springs with homemade ones cut to the needed length, it could be adapted to a diorama base. The swing arms are an easy mod if you cut the centering notch and adapt the position to the terrain if you want to make it workable. If you want a flat suspension, make sure to lay the hull against a flat surface and apply a gentle pressure while the glue is drying, so everything ends up aligned. The tracks are Lincoln length without any flash, with only a small mold line. In my opinion, they live up to the name of fine molds. I will spare you the tedium and show them ready to paint, but I really like this option for tracks in general, without having to buy expensive aftermarket. Now to close the hull. The front has a little problem with a strange gap and flying mudguard. The less enlightened it will feel and sand this part, but I have a better idea after seeing the original type of union. The rest of the fit is
excellent.
Now we need to recreate the holder for the mudguard. For this, I'll use the PE thread and cut a part of it. I like to keep the gap just in the reference picture, so we need to check the size before cutting and bending. As you can see, I cut it from the PE thread. Now with strong side cutters and applying some considerable force, we do the size we need. Be very careful if you try to do something similar. Now we need to straighten up the edges with some pliers. Mine have teeth, which is not very good for this, so if you had flat ones, use them. To help bend the photo edge, we heat it up. With the help of a photo edge bending tool, we do the 90 degrees bending. If we don't have one, we can also use some pliers. With custom parts, we need to check and check again if everything fits. Now that we have the base, we need some extra details. Thankfully, Fine Molds includes some rivets. To glue our custom photo edge and its details, we use some gel type cyanoacrylate glue, aka super glue. As you can see, I'm using an extremely generic cheap one that does the job very well. Now we do the same on the other side. I also wanted to do a spare track holder on the front, so what I did was cut another part from the photo edge thread. You can see there. And now I need to make it perfectly straight with the help of a metal file. Here, same as before, with the photo edge bending tool, we bend it in the shape we need. To know where we need to do the bend, place the track or the object that you want to put there and use a pen to mark the place where to bend. When adding extra stuff, check for interferences and try to prioritize function over form. For our last modification, we'll add some seam welds with green stuff. This is a extremely basic technique, very easy. Just roll it into thin lines, and with the help of some tool that you find, like for example I'm using here the back end of a drill, you make the shape of the weld and then you can clean it up with a blade and some water. The good thing about green stuff is that you can keep working on it and be very precise and fine sculpting stuff. Try not to do it overboard or go over scale, which is something that you can see way too many times. We now finish it up and get it ready for priming. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you learned something, or at least it was entertaining. And if it was, please consider subscribing and stay tuned for part 2, where we'll paint the classic 3-color Japanese latework camouflage.